Hello, I am Peter Okwacho. Welcome to Focus on Africa. Our top stories. During 10 years of violent insurgency, the militant Islamist group Boko Haram has killed tens of thousands and left millions displaced. But how has the conflict changed?
It was impossible to count the number of dead bodies. There were so many. Women, men and children were all killed.
Sudan's military ruler condemns the shooting dead of at least 4 school children at a rally on Monday, calling it an unacceptable crime. A prominent investigative journalist has been arrested in Tanzania. Police say it's over citizenship. Critics claim it's a sign of an ever-strengthening media crackdown. Also on the program, 400 years since the first enslaved Africans landed in America, members of the United States Congress pay their respects on Ghana's Cape Coast. And what do Idrissa Gueye, Moise Kean and Hervé Renard all have in common? We'll tell you in sports. Thanks for joining us here on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. It's 10 years since the Nigerian militant Islamist group Boko Haram started its violent insurgency. It all started when Nigerian police killed the group's founder. They've terrorized northeastern Nigeria and in 2014 abducted 276 schoolgirls in the town of Chibok. Today the group is split, something that marks a new stage in the conflict. In a moment, we'll be talking to the Nigerian government about its war against Boko Haram. But first, the BBC's Mayeni Jones takes a look back at the origins of the group.
Boko Haram means Western education is forbidden. It was formed by this man, Mohammed Yusuf. He hated the West and was very critical of the Nigerian state, which he saw as un-Islamic. In July 2009, Boko Haram staged a failed uprising against the Nigerian government in the northern state of Borno. 800 people were killed and many of their members arrested. Authorities thought they'd successfully crushed the group when Mohammed Yusuf was killed in police custody. But just a year later, one of Yusuf's lieutenants, Abubakar Shekau, announced he was now the new leader of Boko Haram. The next few years would be some of the group's deadliest. Between 2013 and 2015, Boko Haram killed more than 11,000 people.
It was impossible to count the number of dead bodies. There were so many. Women, men and children were all killed.
During that period, the group seized more and more territory in Nigeria. It also spread its attacks to neighboring Niger, Chad and Cameroon. As people fled the terror, the UN estimates that over 2.2 million people were displaced. But Boko Haram's most notorious attacks were when they targeted schoolgirls. In April 2014, armed members of Boko Haram took 276 terrified girls from their school in the northern town of Chibok. The abduction led to global outrage.
Over 100 students are kidnapped by...
Of the Chibok girls have received international...
The planet to stand with Nigeria.
Nigerian government should have shared it.
They don't really understand Islam.
The Foreign Office here has been offering assistance for...
But although a number of them have been released in the last 5 years, more than 100 Chibok girls are still missing. Over time, the government has taken back territory. As he lost more and more ground, Abubakar Shekau started looking for new international allies, eventually pledging allegiance to the so-called Islamic State. But IS appointed a new leader for its affiliate in West Africa, and Boko Haram, as we know it, split. What was now known as the Islamic State in West Africa Province, or ISWAP, changed strategy.
ISWAP tactic now, it's actually is a combination of not just warfare, but it's also a combination of a state-building project.
As ISIS's caliphate is lost in the Middle East, ISWAP is attempting to establish one in West Africa. If it's successful, this insurgency could be around for another decade.
Well, let's talk more about this fight against Boko Haram now with the spokesperson for the Nigerian government, Garba Shehu, who joins me from the Abuja office. Malam Garba, I mean, time and time again you have said on this program that Boko Haram has been defeated. Even President Buhari has said so on this program. But time and time again, we see it carrying out attacks in the northeast. In fact, just last Sunday, 65 people were killed while attending a funeral. This doesn't sound like a group that has been defeated.
We still maintain our position that Boko Haram, as we know it, has been defeated. We are confronted with new challenges, a mixture of remnants of the runaway Boko Haram, elements from Libya, Iraq, failed states, and forming the so-called Islam in West Africa coalition with the bandits who are committing cross-border crimes. So the challenges are there because some ungoverned territories in the Sahel and the Sahara are being used as territories from where cross-border attacks are being carried out against countries like Nigeria, Chad, and Niger.
As you mentioned there, it's split into two groups. It seems you're now fighting a hydra-headed snake. Does that make the battle more difficult?
No, not at all, because the important thing is that we are winning. Look, when we came as a government, nearly half the number of states in Nigeria had faced a Boko Haram threat. As we speak to you now, that threat is confined to the fringe areas of the Lake Chad region. In the same way we defeated the Boko Haram, this ISWA coalition will also be defeated.
Now, just yesterday, the government proscribed the Shia Islamic movement of Nigeria. This bears a resemblance to what the previous administration did to Boko Haram when it was proscribed about 10 years ago. Are you worried that the IMN could become an underground movement?
No, on the contrary, I think this was a necessary early step to take, because in those early years of Boko Haram, the government at that time pretended as if they posed no threat. When they took those girls you mentioned in your earlier report, they argued with the Nigerians that no girls were stolen. And so therefore, Buhari government would have been blamed later if it hadn't acted right on time in order to nip this problem in its bud.
When you insist that Boko Haram has been defeated, what do you tell to family members such as those whose relatives were killed on Sunday?
Well, the president of Nigeria has spoken, has sent words of condolence. We are a large country of nearly 1 million square kilometers. There would be opportunistic crimes even if they were not of this nature. However, the important thing Nigerians and those families need to realize is that our armed forces are doing as much as anybody could do. We are pushing back, we have succeeded in pushing back these threats. The inflow of small weapons, especially from those failed states, is enormous. And we are working to stop all of that. And in due time, certainly victory will also be declared against these new forces.
Malam Garba Shehu, spokesperson for the Nigerian government, thank you very much for talking to us here on Focus in Africa. Now, opposition protests have been taking place in Sudan to condemn renewed violence in the country. At least 5 people, including high school pupils, were killed on Monday when security forces opened fire during a student demonstration in the capital of North Kordofan state. The city of El Obeid is about 425 kilometers southwest of Khartoum. Talks between the opposition and the military leaders set for today on the power-sharing deal were also cancelled. Our Africa correspondent Tommy Oladipo has this report.
A lopsided face-off. Videos circulating on social media show security forces with weapons against school children armed only with their voices of protest. A demonstration against tough living conditions was met with the notorious might of Sudan's rapid support forces. Monday's violence in El Obeid city resulted in dozens of casualties. At the local hospital, commotion as people looked for their loved ones. The authorities have since declared a state of emergency in the area and a nighttime curfew. But news of the incident has sparked outrage and protests elsewhere in Sudan. Pro-democracy activists blame the ruling military regime for the violence. But the head of the military council, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, has condemned the incident and called for immediate accountability. The fresh wave of tension poses a threat to planned power-sharing talks between Sudan's military and the civilian opposition. The country increasingly appears further away from political healing as it once again suffers fresh wounds. Tomi Oladipo, BBC News.
Let's take a quick look now at other stories making the headlines across Africa and the rest of the world. Democratic Republic of Congo President Felix Tshisekedi and his predecessor Joseph Kabila have agreed to form a coalition government. The announcement was made by chief negotiators and confirms reports from Friday that the two camps had made the agreement. The cabinet will consist of 66 members, most of whom will come from the former president's camp. Morocco's King Mohammed VI has granted royal pardons to thousands of prisoners, including some involved in protests that rocked the country in 2016 and 2017. The demonstrations, sparked by a fishmonger who was crushed to death by a rubbish lorry, spiraled into a movement against corruption and unemployment. The prisoners were pardoned on the occasion of the king's accession to the throne. South African officials say 3 pupils have died of suspected food poisoning at a school in the eastern province of Mpumalanga. According to local media, the students at the Nelson Ngobeni Primary School complained of stomach pains and started to vomit before being taken to hospital. 2 of the children died en route, another died in hospital. Police in Tanzania have confirmed they've arrested the prominent investigative journalist Eric Kabendera over a citizenship issue. Mr. Kabendera was taken from his home on Monday, which prompted a social media campaign across East Africa calling for his release. His work has been critical of the government, and his arrest is seen by many as a crackdown on media freedom under President John Magufuli. Our reporter, Egan Salah, has more from Dar es Salaam.
The news of him going missing started going viral on social media yesterday evening. Some saying that this journalist has been kidnapped. But according to the Dar es Salaam Regional Police Commissioner Lazaro Mambosasa, he says the journalist was not kidnapped but arrested.
Mwandishi huyo hakutekwa, aliitwa.
Let me say this, the journalist was not kidnapped. He was called in for interrogation, but he deliberately refused. The reason why he was summoned is doubts over his citizenship.
According to the police commissioner, they had to use force because Eric refused to avail himself for the interrogation.
He knows what he did wrong. That's why he did not turn up. So what we do, we go to where he is, arrest and bring him for interrogation. We frisk and disarm in case he is carrying any weapons. And all that was done in accordance with the law. We have taken good care of him.
This is not the first time that Eric is being summoned by the police for questioning over his citizenship. But it's not Eric only. There are other individuals like politicians and religious leaders. Egan Salah, BBC, Dar es Salaam.
This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News with me, Peter Okwacha. Still to come on the program, 50,000 young people descend on a huge campsite in West Virginia for the World Scout Jamboree, including refugees from Kenya. I'm Peter Okwacha. The top story this hour. Police in Tanzania confirmed they've arrested the prominent investigative journalist Eric Kabendera, prompting a social media campaign. A United States congressional delegation led by Speaker Nancy Pelosi has visited the Cape Coast and Elmina castles, which were used during the slave trade in southern Ghana. The delegation paid their respects at the door of no return to mark 400 years since the first enslaved Africans arrived in America. Our correspondent Thomas Nadi was there and now reports.
This is the door of no return at the Elmina Castle, the main exit through which thousands of enslaved Africans were forcibly shipped to America and the Caribbean to live a life of slavery. It is here that the U.S. congressional delegation, led by Speaker Nancy Pelosi, came to pay their respects as part of activities to mark 400 years since the first slaves arrived in America. It was a very emotional moment for some of them. Just to give you a sense of what happened here, the slaves were shackled and crammed in poorly ventilated dungeons like this one, with no space to even lie down and very little light. Some of the women too were also raped. Apart from their tour of the castles, they've been holding high-level discussions with President Akufo-Addo and other government officials on regional security, sustainable development, and immigration. They've also been discussing how to connect Ghana and U.S. local businesses to boost trade. As the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi is a very powerful political figure in America, accompanied by civil rights campaigner John Lewis and Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. And it is expected that the discussions will yield some positive results. President Akufo-Addo declared 2019 as the year of return to encourage Africans in the diaspora to return home. And when they do return, places like this will be a constant reminder of the dark era of the slave trade. Thomas Nadi, BBC News, Elmina in southern Ghana.
You're watching BBC Focus on Africa. It's now time for some sports. Pierre-Antoine Denis.
Thank you, Peter. It is transfer season and Senegalese midfielder Idrissa Gueye is officially leaving Premier League side Everton for Paris Saint-Germain in Ligue 1 for about $36 million. Gueye signed a 4-year deal and said he will do everything he can to justify the faith the French champions have shown in him. Let's stick with Everton's transfer, as they have been trying to sign the Ivory Coast international Wilfried Zaha, but it appears that this is not going to happen, as Everton said that the matter is now closed. But one deal they have managed to get over the line is for the teenager Moise Kean. He is on his way to Everton for around $35 million. You may remember him walking off the pitch after hearing racist chants from the crowd while playing for Juventus. The Italian international, who was born to Ivorian parents, is expected to complete the formalities tomorrow. Staying with the English Premier League, Chelsea have said they've issued a lifetime ban to one supporter for using racially abusive language and threatening behaviour. It happened during the Manchester City game last December. 5 other supporters have also been temporarily excluded from Stamford Bridge for the use of abusive language and aggressive behaviour at the same match. Another big story in the football world concerned the most expensive player on the planet, Neymar, as police investigating rape allegations against him say they have closed the case. Authorities in Sao Paulo say the case has been suspended due to a lack of evidence, but he will be sent to prosecutors for final decisions. Neymar has consistently denied the accusations. Cricket now, and South Africa captain Faf du Plessis believes the new World Test Championship will add proper context to the 5-day game and has backed the introduction of the Global League as a step forward for the sport. The championship starts on Thursday, and du Plessis described the move as refreshing and says the players are looking forward to this new chapter of Test cricket. And finally, Hervé Renard, the coach who guided both Zambia and Ivory Coast to the glory in the African Cup of Nations, has been unveiled as Saudi Arabia's new national team coach. He stood down as Morocco's coach earlier this month after the team's early exit from the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations in Egypt. And this post on social media shows how excited he is about the new role, saying that he is, I quote, happy to start a new adventure. That's all for the sports today. Peter, merci beaucoup, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Pierre-Antoine. Thank you. Now, it takes place every 4 years and has more young participants than the Olympic Games. For the last 10 days, 50,000 young people from almost every country in the world have been at a purpose-built campsite in West Virginia, celebrating the work of the Scout movement. The World Jamboree aims to bring them all together through friendship, culture and sport. Mike Bushell spent some time there to find out more.
From across the world they came, nearly 50,000 scouts from most of the countries on Earth, to make new friends, party and to challenge themselves in dozens of sports. to West Virginia, USA, and a venue on a scale never seen before.
Just look at the scale of this. Just as these scouts have come from across the world, so the whole movement has come so far since the first World Scout Jamboree in 1920, when there were just 7,000 or 8,000 scouts involved. Now there's far more than 5 times that number, and here they are gathering for the opening ceremony.
And among them, Koch, who's 14 and lives in a refugee camp in Kenya. He's here thanks to a global scouting campaign to give more opportunities and education to young people like him.
It's very fantastic. Meet different countries. They're scout, and scout always be friends. And I come to know them while they're different countries. I have never seen them, and the scout make me to see them.
This tells the world that no matter where we are, we're still sisters and brothers.
Every scout has a digital wristband that helps them connect with each other and also reach the network of 50 million scouts around the world. And one of Koch's new friends is every scout's hero, Bear Grylls, who helped open this jamboree, and as a former scout himself, always leads by example.
OK, come on then, let's go. I think scouting above all gave me friendships, actually, and a real sense of sort of pride. We see such a divided world in so many ways, you know, and I think this for me is a real reminder that actually what bonds us together is much more than separates us. And, you know, this NECA stands for so much.
Almost 50% of the scouts here are now female.
Meeting different people is how it's changed my life. We've met loads of different people from different countries, and we've learned about their cultures, and it's really helped me open my eyes to what my life is like and how it's different to other people's.
You become neighbours with the world. The Italians are setting up their tents right next to the Chileans from the other side of the planet. That's the whole point. The nearly 200 countries are all mixed up together, so you don't know who your neighbours are going to be. This is competitive as well. You get more points the more activities you do, and there are awards for whether it be aerial sports, climbing sports or water sports. And this is what, UK against Colombia.
And what better way to bond with new friends than through the teamwork needed in sport, and on a record-breaking scale. The largest zip wire network in the world, the second biggest man-made climbing wall on Earth, the second biggest skate park in the US. Everything is now here to stay on this permanent site.
There are 14 million young people living in refugee camps, and most of them do not have opportunity for education. And because we think that we are the biggest movement, youth movement for education, so we are trying to bring education to those kids.
It all means that once here in this vast city, they are all as one, equal young scouts, learning about each other and their own cultures, different nations, through direct interaction, whether it be through sport or actually just sitting around having a chat and a dance underneath the setting sun.
Mike Bushell, BBC News in West Virginia.
How things have changed since I was a Boy Scout. Now, some news coming into our newsroom. Caster Semenya will not defend her world 800-meter title in Doha in September after a Swiss judge overruled a temporary suspension on the IAAF's controversial testosterone curbing rules. That's according to her agents. The ruling means the 28-year-old can no longer compete in events between the 400 meters and the mile, as she did in June and July. The World Championships are scheduled between September 28th to October 6th in the Qatari capital. She says, "I am very disappointed to be kept from defending my hard-earned title, but this will not deter me from continuing to fight for the human rights of all female athletes concerned." The South African is also a two-time Olympic gold medalist. Just before we go, another look again at our top story. Police in Tanzania have confirmed they've arrested the prominent investigative journalist Eric Kambendera over a citizenship issue. That's it from me, Peter Okwoche, and the rest of the Focus on Africa team. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.